Hey guys, this is Andrew, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Greatest Luither Tricks of All Time, Part 2. We are back in the shop today. It is an awesome February day. Nice out, 56 degrees. Couldn't ask for a better day to be in the shop. Anyways, we're talking about neck angles. The greatest Luither trick of all time, neck angles. You're going to build a guitar and you want to put an angle back peg head on it. Like that. Or even a 3-in-line or 6-in-line, I mean. Like that. So the question you're going to ask is, how do we get this angle on a neck? There's several ways we can do this. One way is we can take pieces of wood, 3 pieces of wood, 5 pieces of wood, as many pieces as you want, and glue them together like this, but make them thicker than this, like make them 2 inches thick, so they're like this thick instead. And then we would draw a line that runs down like this, and then when we get to our angle point, we'd angle our peg head back, run that through the drill or the bandsaw, and cut it out. And you'd end up with something that looks kind of like this when it's all said and done. But what I'm talking about today is actually this neck here. This is a scarf joint neck. You can see the glue joint there. So how do we get a piece of wood like this with the angle on it? How do we cut that scarf joint? Back in the good old days, you would take your piece of wood, say this piece here that's already glued up, this is 1 inch thick, and you'd take a angle finder and you'd find out what angle you want. You wanted a 15-degree angle, maybe you wanted to be like Gibson, put a 17-degree angle, maybe you want to be like Paul Reed Smith and put a 10-degree angle. If you find your angle on here, whatever it be, you go ahead and take this on here and lay it, you know, on there like that, and you draw your angle on it. Once you have your angle, like say we're going to say it's 12 degrees, that's what I'm cutting mine at, 12 degrees. So I got a line at 12 degrees cut across it. Then you go ahead and clamp this thing onto a board or whatever. This is clamped, it's good. And you end up taking a saw like this, and you would line up your saw on your 12-degree line like this, and then you just start sawing away like that. And about 2 hours later, you'd have a pretty rough scarf joint cut out. But this is 2017, not 1985. So I came up with a better way of doing this. I didn't really come up with it. I just kind of, I don't know. I watch a lot of videos on guitar building, and I struggled with this a lot. I really did. I used to use this saw. Where is it? This saw. I used to use this saw and cut out with the line on all my necks, and it would take forever. I'm talking 45 minutes. And then once it was cut out, it wasn't straight. Then you have to go back and fix it, and you'd spend 2 or 3 hours just cutting a scarf joint. I decided I needed a better way to cut scarf joints to make it quicker. This is my jig that I use on my table saw to cut on my necks now. So let me show you what we got going on here. The table saw blade is lowered right now, but if I would raise it up, the table saw blade would run on this line right here, all the way through there. And I got 2 boards screwed onto the back that goes into each slot here. Sits down inside there. That way it can't move sideways, it can only go forwards and backwards. Okay? Now the blade's down. When I raise the blade up, you'll see. So this is my straight line here. Then I came off this line at a 12-degree angle and drew a line 12 degrees like that. Then I screwed and glued this piece of wood on. So this is my neck, and what you'll do is you'll clamp this thing on there, about right there. You'll take some clamps, and I'll clamp it on here before I cut it. We're not cutting yet. If you clamp it on here, you're going to pull this thing back, like so, raise the blade up. I usually do it in 2 passes, so I raise the blade up to about halfway, run it through, pull it back, then finish it off, and run it through and pull it back. And I'm going to show you that here in just a second. just ran this neck through my table saw, and if you decide to build this jig, just beware that the table saw blade is going to come through on the back side, so keep this first clamp back a little bit, otherwise your blade will run into the clamp and you don't want that. Once it's ran through, take the clamps off, and what we're going to have is two pieces, and you're going to have a piece like that and a piece like this. So naturally this piece isn't big enough for your neck, naturally. So what I like to do is, on this piece it wasn't big enough, but if I get a longer piece of wood, I can cut this angle back farther, which gives me like 6 or 7 inches that I can take and flip it around and glue it on like that for my neck angle. You can take the piece that's cut off and you're going to line it up side to side like that on top of here. And because it's going to have a flat side, you can put a clamp on here back here to hold it in place. Once it's clamped in place, you're going to take a block sander like this, or a rubber block sander, just a piece of wood, whatever. And with this being clamped in place, take your sanding block and you're going to start sanding it until both sides are perfectly smooth. Now, depending on what kind of table saw blade you're using, it depends how much sanding you got to do. Like this piece down here is not bad, but this piece is pretty bad. So on this piece, I might actually run it through my joiner first and clean that up. This piece ain't bad at all. And you might even come through and sand this one first and get it sanded down a little bit before you clamp this piece on. But your goal is to make them exactly perfect, the same. So whenever you're done, you want your hand to go across both of them and not feel where the joint is or anything like that. Okay guys, that is it. How to make a scarf joint on a table saw. Go make yourself a neck and rock out. And don't be using a saw like this if you got a table saw. This jig takes about 10 minutes to make. And it's going to save you a ton of time and a ton of headache. Anyways, thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out my website, AndrewAllenGuitars.com, my Facebook page, AndrewAllenGuitars@Facebook.com. Like, comment, and subscribe, or I'll crack you in the head with a neck. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in another video. Okay, so I know what you're asking. What's the shirt? Renegade Custom Guitars. What's it say? Electric guitars and basses, handcrafted in the USA. Who is Renegade Custom Guitars? For anyone that doesn't know, this was what I used to call my company about 4 years ago. I used to be called Renegade Guitars. I found out there was a company in Canada called Renegade Guitars. I changed it to Renegade Custom Guitars. And about a year and a half after that, I decided I'd just change it all together so there'd be no confusion. And that's when I changed it to Andrew Allen Guitars. So this is just a shirt of my former company, or the same company, just to change the name, that's all.